I never imagined something like this would happen to me. You always hear about stories like this happening to other people, in movies, in gossip, in those dramatic Reddit threads. But when it's your life unraveling right in front of you, it doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like the air's been sucked out of the room and you're just trying to breathe. For the longest time, I thought I had it all together, a good job, a steady relationship, and a routine that kept me grounded. Then came the day I hired a personal trainer. At first, it was harmless. I'd been meaning to take my fitness seriously for a while, and with how busy life had gotten, it made sense to have someone keep me accountable. He came highly recommended. Professional, motivating, and super knowledgeable. Honestly, from day one, I was impressed. He knew exactly what he was doing, and I could feel myself making progress fast. The workouts were hard, but he made them enjoyable, cracking jokes, giving little pep talks, and always pushing me just the right amount. I started to look forward to our sessions, more than I probably should have. Looking back now, I missed some signs. Subtle, but they were there. The long eye contact. The personal questions that seemed to go just a bit deeper than normal. The way he'd lightly touch my shoulder during stretches, or compliment me, not just on my progress, but on how I looked that day, how I smiled. At first, I brushed it off. I was in a relationship. So was he, supposedly. I told myself I was imagining things. It was just part of his charm, right? Trainers are supposed to be encouraging. Things started to shift one evening after a particularly intense session. We were cooling down, and the gym was nearly empty. The lights were dim, and the vibe was different. He sat a little closer than usual. His tone had changed, softer, more personal. And then he said something I couldn't unhear. Something that crossed the line. I left that night feeling weird. Confused. But I didn't say anything. I didn't tell my partner. I told myself it was nothing. That maybe I was overreacting. But then, the texts started. First, it was about scheduling. Then it became late-night messages, asking how I was feeling, what I was doing, how I was really doing. I wanted to draw a line, but part of me didn't. And that's where everything started slipping. I thought I was safe in my relationship, in my routines, in the walls I'd built around myself. But trust me, when temptation wears the face of someone who seems like they're just trying to help you, it's easy to let your guard down. Too easy. What happened next changed everything. It forced me to question not just the people around me, but myself. And the worst part? I didn't see it coming. Not until it was way too late. The days after that night felt strange. I couldn't tell if I was being paranoid or if something was really shifting. I kept reminding myself that this was just my fitness trainer, someone I was paying to help me stay in shape. But every interaction after that felt loaded. The way he greeted me, the way he looked at me, even the tone of his voice during sessions, it was like there was something unsaid hanging in the air. And the thing is, I didn't stop it. I should've, I know that now. But part of me was curious. Not interested, not emotionally invested, just curious. Curious about what this was, or could become. And that curiosity opened a door I wasn't ready to walk through. My partner, who I'd been with for almost 3 years, had no idea. We'd been in a weird place for a while, nothing dramatic, just the slow drift that happens when life gets busy and you stop making each other a priority. We still loved each other, at least I thought we did, but we weren't really seeing each other anymore. It was like we were just going through the motions. So when I started talking about the trainer more, it didn't raise any red flags. If anything, my partner seemed happy I was finally taking better care of myself. But I knew deep down I was hiding something. Even if nothing physical had happened, I had started to withhold parts of my day, parts of my thoughts, and that's where the guilt crept in. I'd replay conversations in my head long after they were over. I'd reread messages and wonder why he said certain things. I'd dress differently for sessions without even realizing it. It was small things, but they added up. Then came the day he asked if I wanted to grab a smoothie after our workout. It sounded harmless. Trainers do that, right? Celebrate a good session, talk about nutrition, whatever. But something in his tone told me this wasn't about smoothies. My stomach dropped, but I smiled and said sure. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to seem rude. Maybe I didn't want to admit that I already knew this was more than it should be. Maybe I was just too far in to pull back. That meetup changed the way I saw everything. It was supposed to be quick, casual. But the way he talked to me, like he already knew something would happen between us, made me feel both nervous and excited. He was confident, relaxed, too comfortable. And I felt like I was losing control. I started asking myself questions I wasn't ready to answer. Was I imagining this connection? Or had I let something dangerous grow under the surface without even realizing it? And just when I thought I could still keep things contained, he showed up somewhere he definitely shouldn't have been. It happened on a Sunday. I remember because we were having one of those rare lazy mornings, no alarms, coffee on the balcony, soft music playing. My partner was flipping through a magazine, and I was pretending to scroll on my phone, trying to seem relaxed. But my mind wasn't there. I'd been avoiding the trainer's texts since the smoothie hangout. He'd started messaging more often after that, throwing in compliments, inside jokes, and little hints that felt more personal than professional. I hadn't responded to the last one. It just didn't feel right anymore. I told myself I needed space to think. But that peace shattered when the doorbell rang. We weren't expecting anyone. I assumed it was a delivery or a neighbor. I walked over casually, still in my hoodie and sweatpants, and opened the door, and there he was. My trainer. Standing on my doorstep. Smiling like this was completely normal. My heart sank. I couldn't even speak for a second. My brain scrambled for explanations, why he was here, how he even knew where I lived, what excuse I could give. Behind me, I could hear my partner's footsteps getting closer. The panic set in fast. Before I could say anything, he said something casual, something like, "Hey, I was just in the area and thought I'd drop off that protein sample I mentioned." I hadn't asked for any sample. We both knew that. But I had no choice but to go along with it. I nodded, forced a weird laugh, and stepped outside, closing the door behind me just enough so my partner wouldn't see. We stood there, facing each other in awkward silence. I could feel the tension rising. He acted like this was normal, like he belonged here. But the way he looked at me, like he knew he'd crossed a line and didn't care, made my skin crawl. I asked him calmly why he came. He shrugged, said he thought I wasn't answering because I was upset. That he just wanted to check in. But something in his voice felt off, like he was testing boundaries, seeing how far he could go. Back inside, my partner was starting to ask questions. I could feel it. I knew this wasn't just a fitness story anymore. This was becoming something much harder to explain, and much harder to hide. The worst part? I didn't even know what side I was on anymore. I shut the door behind him and leaned against it for a second, trying to calm my breathing. My hands were shaking. I didn't know if it was fear or guilt or something in between. My partner stood in the kitchen, holding a mug, eyebrows slightly raised. "Who was that?" they asked, casual on the surface, but I could hear something tighter underneath. I gave a half smile, said it was just someone from the gym dropping something off. The lie came out fast, too easy. I hated how natural it felt. After that day, everything changed. I started to feel like I was living a double life. At home, I was trying to act normal, watching shows, having dinner, doing all the usual things couples do. But inside, I was spiraling. The trainer kept texting. Sometimes flirty, sometimes just checking in, sometimes asking if I was okay. I didn't respond much, but I didn't block him either. I don't even know why. Maybe part of me still wanted to believe I had control over the situation. But deep down, I knew I didn't. Then weird things started happening. One day, I got to the gym and found him already there, even though I hadn't confirmed our session. Another time, he mentioned something I'd posted on a private story meant only for close friends. That's when the fear really started to creep in. It wasn't just about attraction anymore. This felt like something else. Something that had gone too far. At home, the distance between me and my partner grew without either of us talking about it. I could tell they sensed something. The late-night phone checking, the random changes in my schedule, the way I avoided eye contact when certain topics came up, it all added up. One night, as we lay in bed, I caught them staring at me, quiet, like they wanted to ask something but were too afraid of the answer. I turned away and pretended to sleep. The pressure kept building. I started to feel watched. Not just by my partner, but everywhere. At the gym, walking home, even at work. I started getting messages from an unknown number. Things like, "Hope your partner doesn't find out." My stomach would drop every time. I couldn't tell if it was him or someone else. I felt trapped, like I was holding on to a secret that was ready to explode. And then one evening, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my partner said 7 words that made my blood run cold: "We need to talk." I know everything. For a second, I couldn't speak. My brain just froze. I know everything. Those words hit me like a truck. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. My partner stood there, arms crossed, eyes locked on mine, not angry, just tired. Disappointed. That look hurt more than yelling ever could. I forced out a shaky "What do you mean?" but even I didn't believe my own voice. They didn't answer right away. They just pulled out their phone, unlocked it, and handed it to me. There it was, screenshots. Messages I thought I had deleted. Photos from my Instagram story that weren't public. Even a video clip, grainy, but unmistakably showing me and the trainer outside our building the day he dropped by. I didn't know how they got all of it. I didn't even know how long they had known. The room started spinning. My partner didn't yell. They didn't cry. They just said, "Why didn't you just tell me?" And I couldn't answer. Because honestly, I didn't know anymore. Somewhere along the way, it stopped being about fitness, and it became this mess of confusion, attention, temptation, and poor choices. But I wasn't ready to admit all of that out loud. Not yet. Just as I was about to try and explain, their phone buzzed again, a new message from an unknown number. They turned the screen toward me. "You don't really know them like I do." That wasn't from me. And it wasn't the first one they'd gotten. My trainer had been messaging them too. From a burner number. 4 weeks. He'd sent pictures, warnings, even suggested that I wasn't safe to be trusted. My partner had been trying to figure out if it was real or just some twisted game. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about an emotional affair. This had become an obsession. He wasn't just trying to get close to me anymore, he wanted to destroy everything around me. My relationship. My routine. My sense of safety. And now, he was dragging my partner into it, playing both sides like some kind of puppet master. Suddenly, all those weird texts, the random sightings, the feeling of being watched, it all made sense. I felt sick. Not just because of what I'd done, but because I had invited this into my life. I thought I could control it. That I could keep things casual, harmless. But this wasn't harmless anymore. It was real, and it was getting darker. My partner looked at me and said, "This guy's dangerous. I don't think you see it yet." And the truth? I hadn't. Until right then. We didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside made me jump. Every vibration from my phone made my heart race. We didn't know what he'd do next, but one thing was clear. This wasn't about attraction anymore. It was about power. And it felt like the real storm hadn't even started yet. The next morning, I made the decision to end it, all of it. No more ignoring messages. No more pretending everything was fine. I blocked the trainer's number, unfollowed him on everything, and called the gym to formally cancel my sessions. I was done. Or at least, I thought I was. Later that day, I came home from work to find my partner sitting on the couch, pale, holding a letter in their hand. No envelope. Just a single piece of paper. They handed it to me silently. At the top was a printed photo, a screenshot of me and the trainer from a gym security camera. Beneath it, written in thick black marker, were the words, "You can't cut me out that easily." My heart dropped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. We called the police immediately. They took a report, looked through the messages, and told us we should consider changing locks and maybe even staying somewhere else for a while. That night, we packed a couple of bags and went to my cousin's place across town. It felt surreal, like we were on the run. Because in a way, we were. The following week was tense. I barely ate. I barely slept. We kept waiting for the next thing, a text, a call, someone showing up. But it was quiet. Too quiet. Just when I started to think maybe it was over, that maybe the police visit scared him off, we got a call. It was from the gym manager. They had finally reviewed the security footage and found something disturbing. For weeks, the trainer had been staying late at the gym, sometimes after hours when no one else was around. He'd also been using client contact forms to dig up personal information, including emergency contacts and home addresses. Not just mine. Multiple clients. It turns out I wasn't the only one he'd crossed lines with. I was just the one who got furthest into his game without realizing it. The police arrested him 2 days later at his apartment. When they searched his place, they found a notebook. Pages of names, dates, personal details. Mine was on the first page. My partner's name was written right underneath it. It felt like the final chapter. Like we could finally breathe again. I started therapy. My partner and I decided to take a break, not because they didn't care, but because too much had happened too fast. We needed space. I understood. But here's the twist no one saw coming. 3 weeks later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. I debated whether or not to plug it in. Curiosity won. On the drive was one video file. Just one. I opened it. It was footage from inside our apartment, from weeks ago. A hidden camera. Buried deep in the corner of a bookshelf. That's when I realized he'd been inside. My hands were shaking as I stared at the screen. The footage was short, just under 3 minutes. In it, you could see me sitting on the couch, scrolling on my phone, completely unaware. A shadow passed across the hallway behind me, quick, almost too quick to notice. But it was enough. Someone had been in our home. Not just outside, not just nearby, inside. I couldn't breathe. I felt exposed, violated in a way that went deeper than fear. This wasn't just about an unhealthy crush or crossed boundaries anymore. This was a full invasion of our lives. I turned the flash drive in to the police right away. They opened a deeper investigation and found that the trainer had made several unauthorized visits to client addresses, sometimes even accessing buildings using stolen key fob codes. He had been building entire stories in his head, twisting normal interactions into something much darker. Eventually, more victims came forward. Some hadn't even realized he'd crossed the line until now. I wasn't alone. That helped, in a strange way. I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined everything. But the truth was, I had let it go too far before recognizing what was really happening. The camera was removed. The locks were changed. And I started over. My partner and I talked, really talked, for the first time in weeks. They admitted they'd known something was wrong for a while but didn't know how to approach it. I admitted that I let myself slip because I was lonely, disconnected, and looking for validation in the wrong place. We cried. We apologized. And then we both agreed, some things, no matter how painful, happen to wake you up. We didn't get back together right away. We both needed time to heal separately. But we stayed in touch. Slowly, we rebuilt trust, not just in each other, but in ourselves. As for me, I stopped training at private gyms. I went back to basics. Long walks, solo workouts, keeping my fitness personal again, something for me, not anyone else. I learned to spot red flags sooner. I learned the hard way that emotional boundaries matter just as much as physical ones. And most of all, I learned that ignoring the quiet warnings in your gut can cost you more than you ever imagined. To anyone listening to this story, I'm sharing it not to scare you, but to remind you, safety isn't just about locking your doors. It's about knowing who you let into your space, your life, your trust. Sometimes, danger wears a smile. Sometimes, it looks like support. But real support doesn't make you feel confused or watched or scared to speak up. I thought I was safe. I thought I had control. But the truth is, I was in way over my head. And now, I'll never ignore my instincts again. 25.